Hi, the CloudBlog team is here with Michael Krigsman, the CEO and founder of Assurit. Michael is an expert on IT failures. He studied the cloud. He studied enterprise software for many years, and CloudBlog has caught up with him at the DFRAG conference in Broomfield, Colorado. We're outside the building now in Broomfield, and we wanted to catch up with Michael and talk to him about his observations about what is happening at DFRAG. Michael, can you tell us what's going on here?
You know, DFRAG is one of the most fun and interesting conferences I have been to in a long time. A lot of very smart people talking not so much about the commercial experience and the commercial world today, but looking forward and hearing startups discuss their issues and how they're grappling with their particular view of the world and their particular plans.
And what are those plans? What are they grappling with now?
Oh, well, you know, I think data visualization seems to be something that's very important. And Esther Dyson, who many people have heard of, she's kind of legendary. She spoke at length about that. Then there is search engines, and of course, social analytics is a very important topic as well.
Excellent. I saw that you ran a panel on cloud computing also. I'll touch base with that on that a little bit later. But first of all, you've covered IT failures for so long, but you're also committed to fixing them or preventing IT failures from happening. Can you explain why IT failures happen in the first place?
You know, it's very tempting to look to project management and say, well, the project manager didn't calculate his or her budget correctly, or didn't get sufficient executive sponsorship, and it's this person's fault, and it's very easy to cast blame. But I think really what happens is, for most projects, you end up having multiple stakeholder groups. You have IT, you have the business, maybe you have outside consultants, you have an external software vendor or a cloud provider. And each of these groups has its own goals, its own definitions of success, its own metrics, its own set of expectations and perceptions about the project. So it's very difficult to understand, to get a clear picture of the perceptions of each of these various groups and make sure that they're aligned. And it's these lack of coherent, aligned perceptions that tends to be the underlying basis for many problems.
So it is a vendor issue as well, because the vendor they go into a customer or prospect, and they have to navigate all the different departments that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Are vendors successful at this, or can the vendors improve here as well?
Well, I think that it's an experience that involves the customer, that involves the consultants, that involves the software vendors. And yeah, so first off, number one, the vendor really should have the best interests of the customer at heart. And you can say, well, this is obvious, right? But many vendors, their primary interest is in selling licenses or selling services or whatever it is, and racking up as much money as possible, whether or not it's best for the customer. So to the extent that a vendor is genuinely concerned and interested in placing the customer's well-being first, that is the most important starting place. And yes, mistakes are made and we can all do a better job, but if you begin there, you're on the right track as far as the vendor is concerned.
And do you see a difference between cloud vendors and on-premise vendors on their commitment to success? In our world, we view the on-premise vendors as, taking the bookings up front and then just charging maintenance in the back. Is there a difference?
I think that the on-premise vendors would certainly disagree with that characterization because they want to have a good relationship with their customers, as any reputable business should. So I would disagree with that particular characterization. However, I do think that the subscription cloud pricing model has an important implication. With traditional software, the economic buyer, which is to say the purchasing department and the other people who are making those financial decisions, those economic buyers are foremost. They are primary in the selling process. The needs of the end users tend to sort of get pushed down in the scale of priority. With cloud vendors, because of the need to maintain a high level of user adoption over a period of time, so that the cloud vendor can, receive that revenue over a period of time that is based on usage. I think that there is a recognition that the needs of end users is equally as important as the needs of the economic buyers. And I don't say more important, because in fact, you need to have software that works really well, that satisfies the users, that does what the users needs. But at the same time, you need to have software that fits into the organization and accomplishes the organizational goals. And I think that success ultimately depends on both together.
But don't cloud vendors, isn't it part of at least some of their DNA to have a success program, because they can't have an attrition in their deals, because then their revenue goes away almost instantly, because it is a subscription model. It would be like if you're, subscribe to a magazine and all of a sudden you don't like it, you just, get rid of it. Isn't it more in the cloud vendor's DNA, or is it not?
I think that in practice, one of the things that's happening is the cloud vendors are newer. They're newer companies, newer organizations than some of the much larger on-premise vendors. And so I think that one of the advantages that the cloud vendors have had is the ability to shape the fundamental DNA, as you say, of their corporate culture around the economic reality that if the customers aren't happy, all else being equal, those customers will tend to migrate away when their contract expires. Of course, this puts aside issues of escape issues, such as getting their data out and so forth. But that's a separate matter.
I see. With your IT failures column, it seems like most of the things you cover are on-premise, and assuming they've been around for 30 years, and there's going to be failures that come up, here and there. But does the hardware acquisition, the delay of getting the hardware or the software installed, the disconnection between the business buyer and those departments you were talking about earlier, does that not impact the failures, and how would you prevent them?
Okay, well, you're asking a number of questions sort of rolled up into one. With the cloud, the user doesn't have to acquire all of that infrastructure, right? The hardware, as you say, the data center, and so forth. So to the extent that a project can be smaller as a result of that infrastructure and the risk associated with that infrastructure that's now pushed onto the cloud vendor, yes, the project will be more successful. However, if we were to take a cloud project and an on-premise project of equal size, of equal complexity, and just remove the hardware acquisition, the infrastructure acquisition piece, then I would say that those projects would probably tend to have similar degrees of risk, because the need to interface with existing systems is going to be the same. The change management and the training needs are going to be the same. Now, one difference that may be present is that with many of the cloud vendors, you can have a more agile and iterative process, because the developers can sit down with the users and kind of point and click and change the screens and show the user and say, here, what do you think? And then the business user can say, yeah, I like it or I don't like it. And so that's a great thing. But I think even the on-premise vendors are, sort of slowly moving in that direction. And certainly the on-premise vendors that are developing cloud products, they can probably do the same thing.